This is no longer an uncommon sight in Lagos. This time around, the advocacy focuses on the repercussions of rape on the victims and the society. Rape, like a pandemic, has ravaged the nation's polity, and it's high time it is tamed to secure future of younger generations.
Domestic violence should be reported, and people should know that these are crimes. Domestic violence is not a family affair. We've had cases where domestic violence led to murder, assaults, serious assaults. So those things are not acceptable in our societies again. So today we are raising our voices to say no to rape. We are saying no to domestic violence. We are saying no to sexual abuse of children, of young people, of babies.
Police will not take it lightly with any offender. People should speak out. People should report all gender-based violence cases, and the law will take its course.
An activist affirms society aids and abets criminals who in most cases go scot-free, whilst the victims battle damaging repercussions like stigma. Crime records show women and girl child minors have been most affected. Since the COVID-19 lockdown, sharp upsurge in the crime wave, some stakeholders advocate aggressive campaign and sensitization against rape as a crime as opposed to death penalty. Activists also noted that rape cases occur every 5 hours across the country since January till May 2020. Hence the need for a joint effort to tame the scourge. Hence the need for a collaborative effort to tame the scourge.
Say no to rape! Say no to rape! Say no to rape!
The police and other security agencies and other non-governmental organizations have been collaborating to see to it that these cases of rape and gender-based violence are dealt with. The NGOs and civil society organizations that have capacity to deal with these kind of offenses have been cooperating with law enforcement agencies in capacity building, in management of victims of rape and sexual offenses, and procedures for collecting evidence towards successful prosecution. The government has taken the matter to a different level now because of the surge that we've noticed.
Show this morning, the rape and the law. In the last 1 month, or maybe I should backtrack a little and say in the last 3 months, the kind of awareness that has risen and that have risen from rape cases and saying no to rape has actually increased. And this week alone, there has been up to over 5 cases of rape caught across the nation. So it's a situation that really calls for concern. That's what our focus will be on Talk Time today, and we have a lawyer in-house who will be helping us shed more light on rape and the law in Nigeria. Bosun Oshifora, thank you for joining us on the show this morning.
My pleasure.
Joshua, you were going to start by saying, okay, so not just real men don't rape. You can complete that statement now.
Well, what I know is any man, whether you are real or fake, don't just rape. The assumption is that if you're a real man, you should understand that this is abnormal. It's basically bestiality for you to just go after a 3-month-old baby girl. 3 years, 2 years. We are aware that this has always been in existence, rape issues, but why the attention lately? Why is it because that we are seeing more? Social media is rife with activities of people, or the media is focusing more or writing stories about people being raped? I heard of a story in Kano State where the man confessed to have raped over 40 people, 40 women, within 1 year. How that's the reason why we're talking about this now.
Well, I think because we are all at home, so we are witnessing more. But we've always lived with this menace. But now it's not as if rape is on the increase. Well, what we have now is there's more awareness. There are more channels where people can vent, where people can come out and say, this is what is happening. So that's why it looks as if rape is on the ascendancy, but it's always been there. There's always been molestation, there's always been defilement, but people didn't have channels to air their views. Pick 10 ladies, maybe 8.5 will tell you at some point they were molested. So it's always been with us, but the awareness is now on the increase.
According to global statistics, 1 in 3 women have reported either they've been abused or sexually abused or
molested or harassed
or pervasive in this country. I do know that one of the things these women complain about is, or even men or the advocates complain, is when you get to the police station, they will say, let's solve it, let's resolve this.
Maybe before we come to how the police really handles the situation, let's quickly establish, is there a law against rape in Nigeria? I know there is a law, but you know, just we're coming into the studio, you just said that that law has been expanded. So can you quickly take us through what the law stipulates and what rape really is under the law?
All right. There have been laws way back. We used to have the criminal code. Yeah, for the North. Then we have CPA, Criminal Procedure Act for the South. And rape was codified in both, but now those legislations have been done away with. The new legislations. All right, but the one that actually look into rape and what rape is, and has even made a departure, not necessarily a departure, but an expansion of what rape is the extant law is the Violence Against Persons Prohibitions Act 2015. Prior to now, rape was all about vaginal penetration. All right, so it can only be a woman that's been raped. But now, if you look at the Violence Against Persons Prohibitions Act, I think Section 1 talks about rape, and it says that rape covers penetration. Like, now, what underscores rape, number one, is force and lack of consent on the part of the victim. All right, now, so the offender, any penetration of the vagina, any penetration of the anus, and penetration of the mouth of the victim without his consent by the offender using any part of his body or any object, then you can establish, without the consent of that person, then the case of rape has now been established based on that law. Then also what the law has done way back, you have, when it comes to sentencing, you have things like between 7 and 14 years way back. But now the law actually talks about life imprisonment for rape offenders. So that is not the only thing that the law has done. The law has also created, like, there's an agency that happened to be NAPTIP, that they handle things like that. But also the police too is also one of the agencies that the primary agency is the police. But what they have done is to create a list of offenders rape offenders.
List.
So, and they update the list from time to time, and it's meant to be published so that people can know that these are the people perpetrating this evil act. This is a departure from what used to be way back. So those are the things that we have now. Then also, even the law has also made provisions for damages. You know, way back, all you have is just, okay, you have caught the offender, then take him to court, then court sentences him based on the available evidence, and then he goes to prison. But now, where the offender has been harassed, molested, and some damages have been incurred, then you have to pay. The offender will have to pay for some of these things that have been done.
One of the main issues as far as rape is concerned in this country is the issue of evidence. And of course, our court is a court of evidentiary hearings based on what you actually bring before the law and how you can prove that this person's consent wasn't really allowed before the act itself. You have a situation where people don't really know what it takes, because if you go to like the agency in Lagos State decided with this, DSRTV, very, very difficult. Sometimes you just say the person has quickly want to go wash herself or just want to get those things. I just want to rid myself of all this thing. They don't know actually what it takes for you to actually cement your claims or cement get that act done. What should people look out for?
All right, way back, you know, we were dealing with, it depends. Let's take it from different angles. Way back, people didn't used to report rape because of the stereotype that will come with it. If you reported rape, that people will stigmatize you, that look at the lady that was raped and all that. That's one. So people keep quiet for a long time until they confide in, particularly for children. Now, let's quickly differentiate. Okay. Rape is for people, for adults. Molestation is for
young. Okay.
Yeah, defilement is for people who are younger than the age of consent. So, but it's still the same thing. That is the same elements that you find in both. Now, so what happens is people didn't used to report until you find someone to confide in, sometimes years and years after. So it becomes very difficult to prove things like that. It becomes your words against mine. And even now you see people go on social media, you call out someone way back, somebody did this to me, and social media is not the court. You will only get sympathy, but that's not the place you go. So, but once you notice any molestation, once any rape case happens, the first place to go is the police. We will still get to how the police handles things. Way back, it used to be different because of the orientation, but now the awareness is high. Everybody is on red alert for it because it's prevalent, and almost all of us have kids. You don't want them to be subject of funny things like this. So what happens is, once that happens, the first place to go is to the police. An incident, all those issues of bring your pants, bring this, those days are gone.
Okay.
What you have to do now is establish the fact that then technology has advanced to the level where you can actually find out some of these things. Right. But even if you don't have any evidence, it doesn't stop you from still going ahead to lodge your complaint with the police or necessary agencies.
What do police look out for?
What you have to establish is penetration.
Okay.
For rape, you have to, even the law says there must be a level of penetration. Now, so if it was, for example, if it's a mouth, you can't be looking for nothing if not for COVID that we have to cover the mouth, So those days of go and look for what the person was wearing, those days are gone. Once you can establish penetration, once you can establish that it was without the person's consent, then there are some circumstantial evidences that you can actually allude that will help your case. Okay. So even if nobody was there, because most of these things are done in the dark. Now, when I say dark, not necessarily night, but they're done in secret, clandestinely, and so that's what you have. So, but you have to, once it's done, immediacy is what underscores what can help you now. So make sure you voice out. Then for kids, all those uncles who come and tell you if you report you will die. Nobody's going to die. Tell your kids they're not going to die. they will be alive. So if anybody touches you unduly, if anybody does anything funny to you, report. You will not die.
Okay.
We have to grind. We have to grind that into
them. Now we've talked about. Okay, so you just mentioned those uncles. Yes, because it's quite prevalent, but then the awareness.
Like the story you read this morning.
I'm coming to fathers. You know, you hear stories of fathers molesting their daughters. You hear of. And sometimes it's so pathetic that, okay, so this one is how my grandfather's caregiver raped me. A teenager telling a court. So sometimes you have these things happening within the confines of the homes, and then the children, especially the daughters, can't even approach their mothers. Because sometimes for the fear of, they won't believe me because my father is doing this to me, or I could be seen as a black sheep of the family. In such cases, who can those people talk to? Because sometimes when it doesn't get to the crescendo, then they don't
come out. All right. Now, for the one you mentioned, father sleeping with daughters, you have two, I can say 2 count charge there. Now you have rape. Okay. Then you have incest. Incest carries 10 years imprisonment.
Okay.
Without option of fine.
Okay.
No option of fine. That's one of the beauties of the law. Now, so there's incest. The person can be charged for incest. The person can be charged for rape. Now, but as for who to go to or who to report to, thank God for programs like this. And you mentioned the DST.
Yes, DSRTV.
DSRTV, fantastic office. In fact, I've been there. Lodge, they handle so much. Sometimes I pity the people there. I know it's headed by Lola, Revival,
Lola.
They are overwhelmed because it's just a small office, and you don't want to know the amount of complaints that goes there on a daily. Then the office is so small for the volume of work they do, but notwithstanding, if you go to that kind of office, now then there's also the welfare in every local government.
Okay.
There's a welfare office that you can go to and report cases of molestation, cases of rape. Then they know where to, they will contact the police on your behalf, because sometimes you alluded earlier to police being funny. But now things have changed.
So I they've got a desk now.
Yes,
there's human rights. There's police are trying, but we too are stereotyping them. I deal with them on a daily. So sometimes you go there. I mean, there was a joke I think by Oke Bakassi way back when he said, lady came to report rape, and we're like, where he rape you? In house. You go there with your leg. You come up close, you sleep for him bed. All those things, it can be embarrassing. So once if you witness something like that, you wouldn't want to
go there.
But if we look at the gravity of that offense and I always say eternal consequences of rape, because people live with it till they die, and it's so bad. It messes up people's lives. You just see some people become recluse, and somebody who is happy, and these are things parents should watch out for in kids. The moment your kid, who is very vibrant, who is almost all over the place, starts withdrawing, then you have to know that something has gone wrong.
Okay. Sorry, Joshua, let's quickly also touch on the facts that not only girls are raped.
Yes.
Because sometimes a lot of people think, it doesn't happen to the boys. But you also have people who sometimes they hear, especially for the boy child, their housekeeper, their house help, their grandmothers. So let's quickly also speak to that.
That's why the law, like I said earlier on, rape has gone beyond vaginal penetration. It now involves mouth. It now involves anal. So that means a man can actually come and say that I was raped and all that. So because way back, if you don't have, we say this with all sense of responsibility and caution, that if a man doesn't have a vagina, so he can't prove rape. But now with the expanded law, with the extant law, you now find that you can say, okay, this happened to me, and now this falls under what is categorized as rape.
Okay, now the Me Too campaign actually blew the lead on people, abuse of power, blew the lead on so many people who have actually kept quiet for years. We know it actually was prevalent in the UK, and I know that the man has been sentenced now.
Weinstein,
of course. It took years to do that. I just want to know whether the statute of limitation applies to rape cases in Nigeria, because
no, it doesn't.
Not too long ago, we had an instance of someone actually coming out, a wife of a musician coming out to say, look, this happened to me years ago. And of course, I know the case is on as we speak. So the statute of limitation happen here where after a particular year,
where a case has gone cold and you can bring it.
That happens.
Does it happen with
cases? Criminal cases, no. Any crime you've done exists in perpetuity. They can come 30 years after. They can come 40 years after. The only thing that happens now, because we have not developed so much, people can't have maybe DNA proofs and all these things. Then also circumstances may have changed. So it becomes your words against mine kind of thing. But if you look at, I think it was Uwa's case, that forensic evidence shows handprints, fingerprints and all that. Now, so because they quickly moved in on that, you can imagine if that happened 3 years after, too many fingerprints on the wall, then even the way we react to crime in this part of the world, somebody dies, for example, instead of condoning off the place, everybody goes there touching, carrying, and also you might even end up picking the wrong person. Now, so for the musician's wife you talked about, that won't happen a long time. So it will take serious ingenuity and overt evidence to establish such a case, particularly. Now, length of time doesn't affect criminal cases, but it affects proofs and evidence. And it's a question of evidence.
I know this happened in the US, of course, in other jurisdictions as well, where you have, if at that particular point when the incident happened, you have told someone, they can as well use that. Is that true? Perhaps you told your mom,
without evidences.
Where hearsay comes in, hearsay evidence is admissible to an extent.
Okay.
So, but the person on the other side is not dumb. So
which brings me to the question of
lawyers are bad people. Don't just go there.
At what point is no? You have a situation where you say she enticed me with the way she was dressed. You have a situation. He's my boyfriend, but I told him I am not doing. I said no. She was doing one kind with me. In fact, she was
money.
Yes. In fact, he invited me to come over, or she came to my house. At what point is no, considering that you can actually play on some of these stereotypes?
You see, one of the problems, we are the architect of our misfortune. You say no. You repeat you're going there. Now, let's clear this before we go into examples. No is no. No is final. Anything beyond no. Now, if you look at the law says it could be through deceit. It could be through force. It could also be through cajoling someone. Then there are instances also. The law is so expansive that it even there are some other subs of that particular law that says that where you administer something in a drink for someone and the person drinks and you take advantage, it attracts, those things even come without options of fine.
Okay.
Then, sorry, let me quickly point out to something. This Me Too thing you talked about earlier. If you come up with false evidence against someone, it attracts jail time. So don't just go on Facebook
and then just say
maybe you broke up with someone, you now say
like a vendetta.
If you do that, you might land behind bars. So that's as far as that goes. But back to this, what we're saying, no is no. If somebody says no, then you too, if you say no, walk away. Right. Because see, let's balance this.
Because there is an assumption that when you say no, it means
that you're
when you say no, it means yes.
Then there's some people who say stop it, I like it.
Yes.
All those things. When you say no, stand on your no and walk away. Start making effort. Then if the guy now comes after you, then you have a better case on your hand. Okay. But you say no, you're acting funny, you're flirting and all that. All those things don't give leeway to anybody to go ahead after you have said no. Okay. But stand on your no and don't be funny.
Just
with
let
it.
your no
but
be your
no
no
means no, and at any point where a woman or anybody says no, then allow the person to be. There'll be some other time.
Right. Let's quickly talk about, in recent times, rape has had to come with deaths in Nigeria, where we've had the case of Uwa, we had the case of 2 cases now in Ibadan. Yes, I know that for the offenders, we really do not know who a rapist is. It's not written on their foreheads, but there are people who we live with, we come in contact with on a daily basis. So why kill even after raping?
You know, from my little research, I realized that rape and rapists are not about sex. In some cases, it's a mental disorder. Some people, it's not about sex. Sex is meant to bring pleasure. But with rape, I don't see any pleasure in it. So when people start deriving pleasure from your pain, or from seeing you go down in pain, written in pains, or seeing you ruffled, then there's a mental element that is not right in it. So sometimes it's not every rape offender that you just go and throw behind bars. I think some level of medical test
evaluation
too should be. Some people are bipolar. Some people have some demons. Now, I'm not talking spiritual. They have some things not
right in their heads.
Up there, because I don't understand. I mean, we have. I to the best of my knowledge, I was still talking with a friend that how do you struggle? And struggle brings pleasure to you. Struggling and pleasure don't correlate. So there's something wrong somewhere. There's something fundamentally not right with the person. So it's a mental case. Then so some of these things too will have to start bringing to.
We need to wrap up, but in 30 seconds, we'd like for you again to speak to the people on the need to start believing that truly the police is their friend. On the issue of rape,
there is nowhere you will go. It's still the police that will prosecute your case. So you can't run away to, if you come to a lawyer to explain, it is still the police you will go to. But I think also parents should start educating their kids about respect for one another. It starts from the home. Teach your child how to respect the female. Teach the female their limits and what to do, and voicing out. When not just as kids, because I remember my first poem. I still remember till today. So whatever you tell a kid at that age, they will remember as they grow up. So let's start from the home. Programs like this are wonderful. It should come up often. Then churches too. Because we have this thing about forgiveness. If somebody has raped or somebody has molested you, you can forgive the person, but it's still a crime against the state. And it must be, the person must be brought to book, because that's how you create serial offenders. So if you keep forgiving, the person will go out there, will still forgive you. So report these cases, punish the offender, then let's really be serious about this, the list of offending rapists. By the time they put it out there, everybody, you could show any paper that brings it out, it will sell that day, because people want to check. And once they know, you know that whatever career you have is going. So we have to really be serious about it.
Okay, we hope that we will do a part 2 of this topic again, because it's really not, we haven't really ended it. Okay. All right, Boso Shifora, many thanks for coming on the show this morning. Joshua.
Of course, one would say no, it means no. Of course, for those of you, it doesn't always happen even in secret. It happens in our offices. Of course, people of power abusing their position in order to some I don't know, bestial things. Anyway, that's our discussion this morning. Always voice out, always talk about this, and we say no to rape. We're still keeping our social distance, and of course we're still making sure that we wear our face masks. It's essential that we do in order to get coronavirus out of here. That's our package for today. Many thanks for watching. I am Joshua Murakinyo.
It's been a great pleasure coming your way this morning. Many thanks for watching. We'll leave you again with those precautionary measures. It is not time to jettison them as yet. Continue to stay safe. God willing, Morning Delight will be back here 9 a.m. tomorrow. Thank you for watching. I am Abimbola Bilu. Good morning.